Welcome back to Investing with Dana. So, if you've been watching my rental house versus ETF videos, you'll see that I've been investing a little bit in SPYI, and I wanted to explain why. So, SPYI has been around for about 3 years and it's done pretty well. It's very consistent. It yields about 12 to 13%. Actually, down here, if you look, it says 12.18%. It pays distribution monthly, has expense ratio 0.68%, which is somewhat typical. So I just wanted to compare it with some of the other investments I got. And from this point on, I'm going to some money into in my project that I got going on, comparing my rental property to ETFs. And I plan on doing that with GIAX, but GIAX hasn't been performing quite the way I wanted it to. So you might be saying, why didn't you use SPYI from the beginning? Let's jump over here to NEOS. NEOS is the fund manager for SPYI. And let's look at some of these ETFs here. So I have SPYI, QQQI, IWMI, and just recently IYRI, which is a real estate high income ETF. So I have these three here in other brokerage accounts. And the reason why I've been using QDTE, AIPI, and GIAX in my project is because I already have quite a bit of money in SPYI. But with the recent downturn, SPYI is held on pretty well, held on to the NAV pretty well long term here. I don't want my NAV to decline too much. So let's go ahead and look at some of these tabs I got open here. So if you've been following along with my rental house versus ETF, you'll see that I have four different funds. So this totalreturns.com, this is year to date returns right here. So let's go ahead and look at this year to date. So you can see SPYI is down 1.53%. Up here, the SPY is down. So the SPYI is actually held on a little better than SPY. And I threw QQQ in here because that's a popular fund that people like to compare things to. So you can see that AIPI during this downturn since the first of the year is down 8%. GIAX is down 3.64%. QDTE is down 3.76%. And if I compare these since last July, the reason why I'm comparing it to last July is that's when GIAX became a fund to compare apples to apples. This is all the data I have. So you see, since last July, SPY is up 18%, and SPYI is up 16.45%. So pretty similar. QQQ 25, AIPI is 33%, GIAX up 9%, QDTE up 26%. AX I'm disappointed in. I thought it would be doing better, but I think some of that is based on the Russell index. This is more similar to the Russell than the SPY or S&P 500. So when I say SPY, I'm basically using that to compare things to the S&P 500, and QQQ is the Nasdaq 100. So this is I compared to SPY and VTI. VTI is like the Vanguard Total Stock Index. So if you want to get an idea of what the total stock exchange, how it's doing, you can look up VTI. So where S&P is like the top 500, VTI is total stock market. Usually it's pretty similar. And so I want to compare SPY to those two here. I scroll down a little bit. There's a chart, but I want to go back to here. But now I'm going back to 2022, August 2022. That's when SPY was launched. So it's been out for about 3 years. If you look at the total returns since inception, you have the S&P 500 up almost 40%, SPY 26%, and VTI 36%. So here you can look at some different things. Inception was August 30th, expense ratio 0.68%, which is typical. I see a lot of them are 0.99%. And since this is a actively managed ETF, there's people that actually have to take care of this on a daily basis and more labor intensive. So I suppose that's why the expense ratio is higher than others, perhaps like SPY. And some different information you get pays a distribution every month, which kind of nice. There's weekly payers, but it doesn't matter if it's weekly or monthly. I look at the total return, and there's a couple of videos you can click on to learn about SPY. So what I want to do is come down here, and some charts, and there's a usually tab for these ETFs. It'll see something like supplemental tax information 19. Notice this, if you click on that, you see each month when it makes a distribution, it tells you how that distribution is handled for tax reasons. I've already opened a couple of them. So if I click on this one here, actually it's December 26, 2024. And what I look for, so this video is like, why am I picking certain funds for this project? So for my after tax accounts, not my IRAs or 401ks, I want to try to avoid paying taxes as much as possible. So I'm patriotic, but not so much that I want to pay the maximum tax legally possible. I want to pay the minimum tax as legally possible, if that makes sense. So if you look down here, there's a thing called return of capital. If I invest $10,000 and the first month, let's say it pays back 1,000. Now, get that 1,000 could be like interest and dividends. If I get that money back, that would be like dividends that would be returned to me as ordinary income, and I'd pay tax whatever my tax rate is. So I still have a job, and I'm not in a very friendly tax rate, especially since I've been selling rental properties. So I don't want to pay 35% tax on my returns in my ETF. I want to pay 10% or 12% or 0%. So what return of capital is, the way this is treated for tax reasons, I invest 100,000 and I get it 1,000 back a month. And if it's return of capital for tax reasons, it's like they're returning my own money to me, not the dividends, not the interest, but some of my original money. So in that case, I don't have to pay tax on that because it's my money. They're just returning my money to me. It's not a dividend, it's not interest, it's my money. They're just giving it back. For tax reasons, that's better. People might say, how's that legal? That sounds like a good deal. I'll do that forever. If you're talking about 100,000, they give you $1,000 a month after, let's say, 100 months, you've got $100,000 returned to you. Okay, now what happens? Now you got all your money returned to you. Now what's going on? Something's going on. So the money they return to you then is considered long-term capital gains. Now, I'm not a tax expert. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not an investment advisor. I've been known to lose money. I've been known to give bad advice, but I've also been known to make money and give good advice. But this is nobody's advice. This is just what I'm doing. And this is how my taxes work. And this is what works for me. And so I'm just explaining why I'm doing certain things. People might be sitting there thinking, yeah, you win the lottery, you got to pay half of it in taxes. This isn't about the lottery. This is about how my taxes work for these investments. So anyhow, since I still have a job, we're paying very high rate of income tax. I don't want to pay even more my income tax. I want to kick that can down the road a little bit. So by the time all the return of capital happens, I'm looking at, if you figure 100 months, what is that? 7, 8 years from now. By that time, my tax bracket will be lower. I won't have a job. All of our rental properties will be sold off, and life should be a little bit better as far as paying taxes and do my patriotic duty of paying income tax, which I do, but I'd rather pay it as capital gains down the road than ordinary income today. So that's why when I look at funds to invest in, I look for this. return of capital. And if you look for each share that it paid 96% of it return of capital. And then the rest of it, 4% was ordinary income. So if you look at it, it's about almost 2 cents of ordinary income and almost 50 cents of return of capital. So total 51.64 cents. And this was December. If I look at this one here is February 2025, and it's the same thing, 96% return of capital and 4% ordinary income. So what I'm doing, I'm trying to avoid paying all my money into income tax. Call me patriotic or unpatriotic. So I just turned 60. I'm going to be retiring pretty soon. I still have a job. And a lot of people say, you should take all that money from your rental houses and put it in annuities. You should put this in annuities. And like annuities are great. Insurance agents tell me that. Every time I talk to an insurance agent about health insurance or my homeowner's insurance or car insurance, they say, "Oh yeah, you need car insurance. Here's your quote." And that's, "Hey, what are you doing with your retirement money? Why don't you give it to me and I can make a big 8% commission if you dump it into an annuity, and we'll give you 4%." Anyhow, ChatGPT is great. I use ChatGPT more than Google these days. I really enjoy it, and it gets better every day. So I asked ChatGPT, I said, I want to estimate what an annuity would pay me based on these facts. I'm 60 years old. I'm investing 100,000 one-time contribution. I just want to keep this nice even numbers. I won't be adding to it. And I want to figure out for a single joint life annuity, compare them. I want to calculate 10-year, 20-year, and lifetime annuities. And then it spit this out down here. So basically it says single life annuity, so just for me, for the rest of my life, would pay about 550 to $600 a month. So that's probably 5 to 6%. And so that would pay till I die. Okay, and that's not great. Joint annuity, if it was my wife and I, whichever one of us lives to be oldest, we would get this money for the rest of our lives. So it doesn't matter which one of us dies first. Or I could say I want a 10-year annuity. So if we both die, the money keeps getting paid out to our kids or our estate or whoever. For 10 years, it could be 880 to 900. If I plan on living longer than 10 years, about 20 years, this is what it would be. And then lifetime annuity, which is the same as pair 550 to 600. It takes in some of these considerations here, and it looks like it refers you to the Schwab annuity investor. And then if you click on sources, it pops this up over here. What it did, I actually went out to the internet and did some calculations for me, which is why I like ChatGPT kind of does a lot of work for me. I have to poke around the internet for 20 minutes to try to figure out what I want to look at. I can just have ChatGPT do it for me. So the distribution of SPYI is about 12% per year. So that's basically 1% per month. So if I dump 100,000 into SPYI, easy math, 1% is $1,000 approximately based on whatever that few percentage points are. Instead of annuity, what if I put 100,000 SPYI and I drew $600 a month out because the annuity would pay me $600 a month about. So instead of using an annuity, which dies when I die, why not put it in SPYI, draw out $600, and when I die, that 100,000 will probably still be there. If the NAV starts to erode a little bit, if I reinvest the other 6%, so I take 6% and put 6% in, if the NAV erodes, it would still grow at probably 6 to 8%. So if you see back here since the beginning of time, SPYI, which is the blue line, even though it hasn't performed as well as SPY and VTI, still grows. Go back here and let's look. Even if you take the distribution out, it still grows a couple percent per year. So my point is I would never put this money into an annuity and only get $600 a month when I could invest it into something like you get 12% and then take 6% out or 8% out and reinvest the difference back in to let it grow. So, anyhow, the whole thing is like, why am I investing in certain funds for this project? So, we have other brokerage accounts, we have other money. So, if it's in an IRA, I don't care so much because it gets taxed the same when I withdraw that money from an IRA. My funds in taxable accounts, I really look to see how those dividends and distributions are treated for tax reasons before I put the money into it. So people say, well, if SPY is paying 39% and SPYI is paying 26%, why not just put all your money in SPY and draw out $1,000 a month? The reason is because of tax reasons. So for SPYI, if I draw out $1,000 a month, if I'm in a very high tax bracket, I'm only going to end up with, let's say, $600 of that amount of the 1,000. I got paid $400 in taxes. With SPYI, even though it's getting a lower total return, that money will be coming to me initially without having to pay taxes. And later, it will be taxed at capital gains, long-term capital gains, which is taxed even lower than ordinary income. So it's mostly all about tax planning. All right, so I'll wrap it up there. So don't forget to like these videos if you do like them. If you don't like them, go ahead and subscribe anyhow, just to help me out. So till next time, have a good week.